Good afternoon, live from the broadcasting house in the county of Nairobi. This is the great KBC. You're just in time for KBC Lunchtime News on this 20th day of November 2023. It's actually World Children's Day. My name is Njue, and I will be taking you through what is shaping up the conversation in the country. Join us via our social media platforms as we are live. We begin with the gazetted charges of a number of documents here in the country where the government has invited Kenyans to submit their views on the proposed new levies for immigration and citizen services, which are set to take effect on the 1st of January, the year 2024. Immigration Principal Secretary Julius Bitok, in a notice to the public published in a local daily, says Kenyans have until the 8th of December 2023, which is about 3 weeks away, to submit their views as part of the public participation exercise. And as Joseph Wahung reports, pressure is now mounting on the government to scrap the charges.
Immigration Principal Secretary Julius Bitok has welcomed Kenyans to submit their proposals in writing to his department's Njue House headquarters not later than 8th of December 2023. He indicated that the submissions can also be submitted at regional commissioners, county commissioners, or deputy county commissioners' offices, or via email to info.citizenservices@interior.go.ke. This as members of the clergy mounted pressure on the government to scrap the proposed increase in marriage processing charges. Speaking during prayers for IDPs in Nakuru County, Pastor Harrison Kariuki Bwangi of the Foundation of Prophet and Apostles Church of God warned that increasing the fee will encourage moral decay as young people will shy away from registering their marriages.
Hii ada ambayo sasa inawekwa ya certificate ya marriage, hiyo ikiwa kiwango ya juu zaidi, hata vijana youth watatoroka kutoka kanisa, watakosa kanisani, na sasa kanisa tukikosa wale youth, tutakosa wacha Mungu katika nchi yetu.
Sentiments echoed by Kenya Internally Displaced Persons Organization patron Peter Tena, who termed the increase of fees to access government services as unfair and humane.
Mukiweka conditions kwa marriage certificate, itakuwa marriage ni blackout. Itakuwa hatari katika taifa, na tutakuwa tunaelekezwa kwa zile mambo za marriage za contract na vitu mbaya mbaya zitakuja kutuadhiri.
For Lunchtime News, I'm Joseph Wahungu.
To some politics now, where a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders have faulted former President Uhuru Kenyatta over his remarks during a church service in which he accused the current administration of failing to honor its pre-election pledges. The leaders, led by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and Public Service Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria, said the former regime presided over plunder of public resources and an unattainable debt, calling for the former president to come clean on specific government transactions that they claim were the hallmark of state capture.
Sasa mtu akishindwa njia ya kufanya kitu yake, sijui serikali iliyopita, sasa kesho yake mtasema hata watoto wakikataa ama mama akikataa kuzaa, unajua Uhuru.
These remarks by the former president appear to have sparked anger among supporters of President William Ruto, who now claim Kenyatta is seeking to politically undermine his successor. Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah insists that the current economic turmoil is as a result of financial imprudence by the Kenyatta administration.
We drained our foreign exchange reserves. $2 billion was taken away from our foreign exchange reserves, put in a private commercial bank to artificially prop up our foreign exchange rates. That's why the dollar versus the shilling, against the shilling, was trading at 120, 125 on average.
Ichung'wah says he's in the final stages of tabling the state capture bill that he says will form the grounds for investigating suspicious deals by the fourth administration, claiming the move may have triggered the sentiments by Kenyatta.
We need and we must, as a country, have a commission to deal with state capture, be it a judicial commission of inquiry or whatever commission we can have in place to deal with the question of state capture over our economy.
Public Service Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has also condemned remarks by Kenyatta. Through a tweet on his official account, The CS says the government has fared well in managing the crisis he claims Kenyatta left behind. Meanwhile, a section of the Luo community in Mombasa says they will chart a different political path after ditching ODM party to join UDA. The Luo UDA caucus says it will field candidates in all elective positions.
When you come to Mombasa, you will negotiate with the Luo leadership. The Luo leadership will present the names of their people that they want to compete in election.
John Jacob Curie, Lunchtime News.
And away from politics, let's have a look at the ongoing El Nino floods, where a section of Wajir legislators led by Wajir North MP Ibrahim Sanei are currently addressing the media at Parliament buildings. Let's first of all listen in.
And command his cabinet so that the people of Wajir North do not die of hunger, are not swept away by the raging floods. Already we are entirely displaced and we can't access services of bigger towns. We are in a country which perpetually politics. I have seen senior government officers or high-profile individuals of this country talking about the politics of UDA and Secretary General, quarreling over Secretary General. That it should not be this man, we will have another man. For us, I feel that is a joke to the people of Wajir North. The president is a man who has created UDA from where it did not exist. He created it and brought it to power. It is the reigning party. And he can sort out the elections of UDA and appoint the Secretary General he wishes. It's not time to, quarrel about Secretary General when Kenyans are starving, dying, or are in the midst of such tragedies. I feel those who always talk of the Secretary General, Malala against the other, lack empathy for the people of Wajir County and the 19 counties that are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. I know that initially we have been given information that billions have been allocated, have been set aside to respond to El Nino. Where are these billions? Where are they? When will they do something? Is it after people have died? Is it after houses have been washed? Livelihoods have been lost. Will these billions resurface and mimic to do something that is of no use then? So we are asking ourselves, there has been contingency plan for El Nino. Billions. Some sectors, I know one sector given 700 million. 700 million, one agency. And many others. Where are these billions? Why are they not used adequately? For us,
that has been one of the leaders in Wajir County there, questioning where the billions that were set aside for the mitigation of the floods, and especially in the northern part of Kenya, are, and also calling for concerted efforts to mitigate these effects of the raging floods. Northeastern Kenya being one of the regions that have been worst hit by the raging floods. On the side note, he has also touched on the UDA politics after the ruling party postponed its grassroots election. More on that a little bit later in our subsequent bulletin. But in other news, 3 people have been killed in a suspected banditry attack in Nasokuro area, Rugus location, Baringo South. The 3 who were in the grazing fields are alleged to have been ambushed and shot at close range. One other herder is reported to have escaped unhurt. Baringo Police Commander Julius Kirago says security organs are working together to rid the area of bandits. Local herders, our leaders, have condemned the incident, calling on the government to arrest the menace decisively, warning of the returns of the acts of banditry.
Tension remains high in the Nosokuro area, Rogus location, Baringo South, after 3 people who are patrolling grazing fields were allegedly ambushed and shot dead by suspected bandits. The suspected bandits are said to have laid siege for hours, barring family members from retrieving the bodies. It took a multi-agency security team to retrieve the bodies of the deceased.
Kasikia ameua vijana yetu wawili juu ya hiyo milima na aliuawa, lakini yenyewe hakuna ng'ombe ilipelekwa, alipigana tu wakaua. Na tangu saa hiyo tulingangana kujaribu kuleta ile mwili kawa ngumu
taji, na tunaomba msaada tuongezewe ya polisi wa ziada ama NPR, kwa sababu tukiwa na wao hata hii shida ya mwili kukaa huko zaidi ya masaa 24 ingekuwa sahihi tungesha tatua.
Local leaders have condemned the act, saying it is time for the government to act decisively and flush out bandits in the area who have been hiding behind the hills, causing panic in the area.
Sisi naomba serikali kwamba yale maneno ambayo mnasema itimizwe. Mkisema area ni disturbed area, kwa nini bado wahalifu wanaishi? Na mko na nguvu yote ya kuondoa hawa. Na sisi tunaomba kama community, tumechoka kushika watu. Tumechoka kusika watu.
These people are up to nini wanaitaka hapa? Tunataka kuomba serikali waondoe hao watu mara moja, kwa sababu hao sisi hatujaenda kwao, and we have no business going to their place, but we have been killed in our place, in our land. We have been displaced.
Baringo Police Commander Julius Kirago, while confirming the incident, said that Kenya Defence Forces, with the use of drones, have started to retrieve the bodies. Kirago added the police will flush out bandits who have been causing mayhem in Baringo North. The incident is the latest in a series of bandit attacks in the area, classified as disturbed and dangerous.
And from Baringo County to Kilifi County, where the county government says it has been able to contain the cholera menace with no outbreak reported in the last 7 years, attributing this to efforts to ensure the county is declared an open defecation free. This was revealed during the annual World Toilet Day celebrations commemorated in Chonyi, Kilifi South constituency. Deputy Governor Flora Chibule says the county government was prepared to tackle any health hazards that may arise from the ongoing El Nino floods, urging residents to observe good hygiene.
According to Kilifi County Director of Health Services, Dr. Hassan Lili, 86% of the county's population is using toilets, as opposed to the past when open defecation was rampant. 955 villages have been sensitized on the importance of having toilets in their homes.
Tunasema ya kwamba kuwe na maeneo ya vyoo, na pia tuangazie uoshaji mikono, haswa kutumia sabuni. Kwa Wakenya wote, wacha pamoja tuhakikishe ya kwamba malengo yetu ya kwamba tuwe na zero magonjwa yanayohusikana na sanitation yaishe.
Kilifi County targets to be free of open defecation by 2024, and such interventions are said to be bearing fruit in the reduction of diseases such as cholera.
Mahali kuna marketplaces, mahali kuna mashule na maeneo kama yale, ya kwamba watoto wetu, vijana wetu, kina baba, kina mama wapate mazingira ambayo wanaweza kutumia vyoo vizuri.
The County Assembly says it is working closely with the county leadership to ensure health is prioritized.
And also during this rainy season, as a county government, we have set up an emergency operations center that are handling responses from the community in terms of flooding, in terms of diseases. We are doing disease surveillance. We have a number that is 1535. That is a free toll number you can call, so that our officers from the department of, we are working as a multi-sector, Department of Disaster, Department of Health, and of course the national government.
Tunajua hii mvua imeharibu mali mingi, ikiwemo labda kuna ambao walikuwa wamechimba vyoo zao mahali ambapo labda maji yanapita. Kama county tumejipanga na tutaona ni jinsi gani inaweza kurekebishwa ili kwamba wakazi wa Kilifi waendelee kutumia vyoo na kuweza kupunguza ile maradhi ambayo yanaweza kuwapata kutokana na ukosefu wa hizi choo.
Katika hili eneo langu nashukuru kwa sababu kila mara hawa CHVs huwa naona wako very active na huwa wanazunguka nyumba baada ya nyumba wakihamasisha watu wawe wakitumia vyoo kwa hali nzuri.
And we call upon all the other counties in this republic to ensure that we remove the shame of suffering from diarrhea or getting sick because of diseases we can otherwise prevent by using toilets.
Elsewhere, a group of journalists working in Trans Nzoia County have teamed up with other well-wishers in an exercise to treat people in over 100 households infested by jiggers at Halwange village in Endebe sub-county. Residents were sensitized on the importance of basic hygiene to ward off diseases.
Members of Kitale Press Welfare, with support from Ahadi Kenya Foundation, Royal Gardens Hospital and Kesha Supermarket, led the team from house to house to treat the affected families and to offer victims humanitarian support.
Na sisi kama healthcare providers tunaona kwamba tunahitaji community health workers from this place ili waweze kututumia akina mama, wajawazito, watoto hawa ili tuweze kuwasaidia.
Area Assistant Chief Agnes Odina said poverty together with congestion are the root cause of the jiggers infestation in the area. Odina made appeals to the county government to consider looking for land to settle some of the families.
Kwa leo tumeweza kufikia familia zaidi ya 100 kuweza kuwasaidia kueradicate jiggers, na pia tungeomba serikali na tungeomba pia viongozi katika kaunti yetu ya Trans Nzoia kuweza kutenga hata kama ni kitu kidogo tu kuweza kushughulikia masuala ya wakazi wa Halwenge, kwa sababu hili ni janga ambalo limekuwa likiwakumba.
A local community health promoter, Stephen Kisongochi, says they have started a campaign to educate the villagers on how to disinfect the soil before smearing the mud-walled houses.
Hapa licha ya watu kuishi, tuko na watoto ambayo wanatembea paka wanalemaa. Kuna wengine wanakosa kwenda shule kwa sababu ya funza, wakati wanatembea wako na vinonda ya funza hawawezi kufika shule. Alafu wale wanafika shule hawa concentrate kwa elimu kwa sababu funza inaonekana inaadhiri mtoto kiakili.
Abdullahi Ali, Lunchtime News.
Moving on, Marsabit County Government has launched an appeal for support for those affected by floods in northern Kenya. Area Governor Mohamud Ali says at least 40,000 residents are in dire need of food. He has, however, called on the national government and other humanitarian agencies to come to the aid of the people in the region by providing relief food.
Marsabit County Government has begun assisting at least 40,000 flood victims. The area governor says quite a good number of feeder roads have been cut off by the floods across the county, rendering most villages inaccessible.
Pia wao vilevile wajaribu kutusaidia ili tushirikiane katika hiyo harakati ya kusaidia wananchi. Tunawashukuru vile mliona logo pia walitupatia blanketi, chakula, watu wa Red Cross na wengine. Tunaendelea kushirikiana na hao.
Normal transportation is not there. Of course, livestock are also getting exhausted because of excessive rain. Some flood has really carried off some livestock, and homestead have been destroyed.
He revealed that the county government is already facing extreme food shortage, acute malnutrition and high disease levels, and the risk of hunger-related deaths that have rapidly increased due to the floods.
There are huge reports, but in terms of figures, we are yet to get these numbers. But in some areas already they have reported numbers of people. If you don't access social amenities, meaning you don't access facilities, I'm sure
usiku na mchana mvua ilikuwa inanyesha, hata kuna vile mtafanya kazi, maharage ikaribika kwa shamba, mahindi.
Lakini mimi naambia watu wetu atoka kwa laga, kutoka leo asonge kwa laga, sasa achunga mali yao mzuri.
Elsewhere, Samburu County Government has commenced digging trenches in Lerata Samburu East constituency in a move aimed at dealing with the adverse effects of floods. More than 250 families have been affected by the floods in Lerata village. The residents are now calling on the national government to come to their aid.
Kwamba wakati huu wa mafuriko, wakati ambapo tunaendelea kupata mvua, tafadhali tujaribu kuwasaidia watu wetu kwa maana tunahitaji msaada. Hivi leo tulipata kusaidiwa na msimamizi wa wodi hii MCA wa Waso Ward Bwana Kelvin Lemandan, ambao ametutumania tingatinga hii ambayo imekuja kututengenezea mtaro, na hii kama tukiwa na mtaro kama huu itaweza basi kupeleka maji katika mkondo ambao wa ule mtu ambao tunatumia hapa karibuni.
Meanwhile, Mandera County is grappling with the dire consequences of intense rainfall, leading to severe flooding, loss of life and widespread destruction.
Vile unaona barabara imekatika, maisha imeenda juu. Vile mvua inyesha na shida vile imeteresha watu wa Mandera wako shahidi. Kwa hivyo tunataka nguvu ya NGOs.
Wananchi wameteseka na students hai shule imefungwa na watoto wanateseka.
The heavy downpours have submerged major roads, with some routes rendered completely impassable.
Food prices and food commodities have gone up due to the scarcity of food itself. So the vulnerable population that were displaced and also affected by subsequent hazard like drought, and also now they are experiencing flood, need an immediate intervention.
The county's major markets that serve about 200,000 Mandera East residents have also been affected. Residents are expressing distress over lack of supplies.
Kwa hivyo tunaomba serikali yetu, kama ni serikali ya kaunti ya Mandera, watu wa Mandera wako na shida, wakina mama, watoto. Kama nyinyi ni viongozi, hatutaki viongozi ya kuwekelea peke yake. Tunataka viongozi kama imeshauriwa jana na wananchi, utembelea kwa kila manyumba, muangalie watu wako na shida.
Bradley Agutu for Lunchtime News.
And away from the floods, residents of Njue area in Kasarani constituency in Nairobi are crying foul over alleged extortion by community leaders. The irate residents say the area chief is in cahoots with area elders who demand between 30 and 40,000 shillings for any construction development. They are now appealing to the relevant authorities to intervene.
At Njue settlements in Nairobi, the relative calmness contrasts with the controversies that the land has attracted over time. From decade-long court cases to demolitions, and now alleged extortion of locals by local leaders. The locals say that chiefs have allegedly teamed up with elders where they demand money from residents who erect structures.
Hapa mtu hawezi jenga kiwanja kama hajapeana pesa. Chief lazima afike kwa site wakiwa na huyo assistant wake. Sana sana assistant ndiye anasumbua. Juu kianza kujenga tu hivi anafika hapo anaanza kudemand apewe ngiri 20 ndio kiwanja ianze kazi.
They have, however, pointed a finger at the National Construction Authority, which is mandated to keep a register of all construction works happening across the country.
Tukianza kujenga kitu kidogo ya kujishikilia, hawa wazito hao kubwa wetu wanakuja, wanatuaras, wanataka pesa. Sasa hata mdozi mwenye anajenga anafika mahali anaogopa kujenga. Sasa sisi nasi ni wasasi hapa.
It is for this reason that they want the national government and county government to intervene.
Si tunaomba tu serikali yote mahali penye iko itupiganie, itume tu machief kwa kazi yenye iliwapea. Si tunajua chief alipewa kazi.
Attempts to reach the area chief were futile. Parsai Frederick reporting for Lunchtime News.
Moving on, policymakers have been challenged to address gender parity gaps in leadership positions and empower young women to embrace leadership in different sectors of the economy. Speaking during the 10th anniversary of the Female Future Program, Federation of Kenya Employers FKE CEO Jacqueline Mogo called for programs that equip young women with the right leadership skills and also give them forums to exchange ideas to increase productivity.
We as a country have been trying to pass the gender rule in Parliament. It's not been able to pass all this time. This program helps to bridge that gap and to give the women the trick that they need to be able to operate in a fairly male-oriented domain.
I have enjoyed being part of this program.
I came in when I was just an officer, and by that time I was promoted to a HR leadership course, HR leadership role, and currently now I'm a HR manager.
I recommend it to every single lady out there. Anyone who'd want to improve their leadership skills, how they relate with other people, how to link their emotions to their work.
The news, beach management units in the coast region have been challenged to actively plant mangrove trees and clean beach shores to improve the marine ecosystem. Speakers during the mangrove tree planting exercise in Judah Creek in Mombasa, organized by the community-based organization and Coast Development Authority, noted numerous coastal communities depend on fishing as their source of income. Hence, planting of mangrove trees will provide a conducive environment for fish breeding. During the exercise, 1,000 mangrove trees were planted. This will not only protect the environment, but also increase their income.
Tunaomba BMU zingine ziige mifano hii ili iweze kusafisha mazingira yaliyoko katika bahari hizi zetu. Kwa sababu bila mazingira masafi hatutapata samaki. Bila kupanda hii miti ya mikoko katika maeneo ya bahari, samaki hatutapata. Na tusipopata samaki, kitega uchumi chetu katika maeneo ya pwani inaenda chini. Na haiwezekani sisi tuko maeneo ya pwani hatuna uvuvi hauimarishi, ama maduka ya samaki ni kidogo kuliko zile tunazoziona za bucha. At least tunataka tupate uvuvi na hichi kipato kenye kinatoka katika bahari kimeweza kustawisha ili hao vijana unaona nyuma yangu wapate makazi.
Mikoko ikiwepo ndo katika area ambazo samaki wanazaa hapo. Kwa hivyo tunahamasishana kama wavuvi kuhakikisha kama tupanda mikoko mingi iwezekanavyo ili tuhakikishe ni area za mazao ya samaki tumeongeza.
Now, the county government of Kisii has distributed safe toilets to residents of Kisii Central after several households were found lacking in toilets. However, the county chief officer of health, Gladys Aminga, sensitized people over the possibility of waterborne diseases that could lead to outbreaks due to reckless human waste disposal.
We have promised, and we are working together with His Excellency the Governor to ensure that we want to ensure in 3 months' time, we have already identified the villages which these households are not having toilets, and we are now going to educate our people on how to ensure they can have cheap toilets which they don't struggle a lot.
We've been here a number of times. We've been here doing a lot of interventions. Apart from sanitation, we are also doing menstrual hygiene management projects, interventions within.
And still on health, the private health facilities have been urged to work closely with the community health promoters to enhance health services within the community. This was the clarion call during a free medical camp organized for residents of Maina Estate in Nyahururu Town, Laikipia County. The free medical checkup was an initiative of the county government in partnership with colleges and universities and a private medical health facility in the county.
With all other stakeholders, including the Ministry of Health, together we can be able to at least know our people around here, what they basically need in terms of in matters health, and above all, basically we just want a healthy nation.
Ningeomba wakaaji wa estate hii yetu ya Maina tuangalie sana kwa upande wa usafi, tuwe tukitumia boma zetu vizuri, kutupa takataka hovyo hovyo tuchuge sana, kwa sababu hiyo ndio inatuletea madhara.
And at about 1:30, we are due for our first break. But on the other side of the break, we'll be having a candid conversation on climate financing, and I will be involving George Njue, who is the ACC head of East Africa.
Pia kona ka forehead. Akona the mark of quality.
Amekerong dinelom setan uoba.
Nataka kumaliza mambo hiyo wedding.
Kwanza kiongea kitu kia Beatrice sana. Rosi Paul.
Umenimaliza kama chai kwa kikombe. Sisi zote zimebaki December, September, October.
Wanaona, I know my Israel.
Ni kama tu nikuja nikwambie uko na kichwa kubwa. Sasa makosa si
au sio? Ndio manake. Okay.
Every Monday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on KBC Channel 1.
Guess what? It's your good friend and loyal partner, Claudio. He's the one who took it.
Olga mentioned to me that he was also involved in the murder of Carolina.
Olga?
I've got nothing to do with those drugs!
Transporting it. So the charges will be against you.
Where are they? They shouldn't get away from us. You two check over there. You
Yes,
come
sir.
with me. Hurry up!
I've just recalled everything. Now I'm going to do what I should have done long before. I am going to tell the truth.
But getting cold feet?
No, certainly not.
The Institution of Engineers of Kenya was formed in 1972 with the aim of advancing engineering interests for the benefit of human welfare and sustainable development. IEK provides service to its members by organizing seminars, lectures, publications and trainings to enable them to keep up to date with technical and industrial developments. The institution collaborates with government and other organizations to advance global best practices and the engineering profession. IEK has made significant steps in the advancement of the engineering profession in Kenya and looks forward to playing a pivotal role in Kenya's development into an industrial power.
Welcome to this business segment, and beginning from the banks, Equity Bank Kenya profit after tax declined by 20%, weighed down by high overheads and a jump in non-performing loans in the last 9 months. The bank says post-tax profit was recorded at 19.3 billion shillings. Equity Bank DRC posted 142% net profit growth to 11.4 billion shillings, while the Tanzania subsidiary posted 136% growth in net earnings.
If you look at Kenya, Kenya is down, I think, 25%, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of profit. But it has been overcompensated by growth of profit in Uganda, Tanzania, DRC, and Rwanda. And as a result, we have registered a 5% growth rate. Now, because Kenya is the most integrated globally and most diversified, when the tide turns, the first country to lift again will be Kenya, because it received the biggest thing. And as we said, we think inflation and interest rates have peaked, so it's a question of when do we start seeing.
So we are ready to launch Equity Afya in the DRC. And on the insurance, actually, we have signed the first step agreement with Angela. That was last week, where actually we are launching as well the bank insurance product already in the DRC. In the next week, we should be launching and making it operational.
Procurement officers are being urged to embrace the transformative power of interconnectivity to expand market reach and attract a broader customer base. Intermedia Chairman Alex Chesosi says technological advancement play a key role in fostering inclusive socio-economic development within trade.
At the second Procurement and Supply Chain Dialogue Forum held at a Mombasa hotel, the adoption of private cellular network-based connectivity solutions was underscored, with speakers saying such solutions are beacons of innovation poised to revolutionize business operations. Speakers said private cellular networks were fronted as an avenue to take the internet to far-flung areas in the country where fiber optic cables have not reached.
Sometimes, and we are aware that corruption tends to root out from. We are saying that as members, if we are included in the boards, we are able to influence or guide or support proper supply chain practices at that particular level.
He says due to its unique security encryptions, private cellular networks are safer amid growing security breaches and hackings.
But we think there's room for the government through Africa Union and Kenya at the forefront, then determining how that will be implemented in terms of a policy framework, in terms of championing the unity within ESC, COMESA and others, so that with supply chain then contributing in terms of that policy framework, then we can see how to accelerate the pace of digitization of trade within the region.
They also called on governments in Africa to foster partnerships with the private sector that will enable millions to harness the benefit of enhanced connectivity services, marking a new era in the African telecommunications landscape.
Supply chain sits at the center of economic growth. Economic growth is powered by supply chain. It's a very vital component in any economic setup. But to achieve connectivity, to achieve success in supply chain rather, you need connectivity.
Ndutamo Kami for Lunchtime News.
In other news, Njue is calling for a predictable tax regime to help businesses plan accordingly. The firm's managing director, David Chesoni, says abrupt review of taxes and levies is affecting the cost of production since some of the input are imported goods that are affected by changes in the tax regime.
To some extent, this has had a negative impact on the demand for equipment business. And as a result, we have seen a drop in demand. However, because of our presence in East Africa, that's both in Uganda and Tanzania, and the other neighboring countries like Sudan, South Sudan specifically, and Congo, it has really assisted us in making sure that we are able to keep our demand levels at the right level and just be able to survive.
Very well, now let's enter into our business interview segment where we are discussing matters climate financing. And do you know $29.5 billion was committed to Africa in the year 2019-2020 in matters climate financing, of which 11.4 billion, that is 39%, was for adaptation investment only. And for this to try and crunch the numbers, we are joined by George Njue, who is the ACCA head for East Africa, that is the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants. And when we hear these numbers, I remember during the Africa Climate Summit, we also have been crunching numbers, big numbers. Climate financing, in the simplest form, how can we understand climate financing?
Thank you very much, and that's a very good question. Climate financing is also known by another name as green financing. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about green financing or climate financing, we're talking about being able to align financial investments with environmental goals. And who is making these financial investments? It could be the public sector, the private sector, or not-for-profit. And what are these environmental goals? Mm-hmm. It could be either climate change, which all of us know about, promoting renewable energy, fostering environmentally responsible practices. So how do we channel investments? How do we align investments to these environmental goals? Mm-hmm. So it can be backed by policies, it can be backed by incentives, but it's about driving investments to to businesses which support environmental goals.
And when we talk about ACCA, we know ACCA, it's all about accountants.
Yes.
How does accountants and climate change, where do they merge? Where do they marry?
In fact, they are married at the hip, because when you talk about investment, at the very core of investments, at the very core of any organization, at the very core of any finance function, we always find a professional accountant. And what's the work of a professional accountant is actually that. It's about resources, it's about financing. And if we are to be able to prioritize and direct investment to environmentally friendly goals, then the accountant needs to be at the center of that. They need to be able to know how do they source, how do they report. Because there's also an element of reporting. You're saying that this project is environmentally friendly. How do we measure that it's environmental? How do we measure the impact of it? So financial accountants are the very core of actually green financing.
And what are the frameworks of climate financing? And you know very well, Kenya and a host of other African countries, we are still developing. We are not yet there.
Yes.
And you're talking about Kenya, which look at the northern part of Kenya. When it's flooding, it's flooding. When we come to the drought, we are the worst hit.
Yes, yes. I think some of these are very simple. And allow me to give you a very simple example. Last year, we needed to source for some what you call notebooks, as this is here in Kenya. And we needed to source notebooks, but at the same time remain environmentally friendly. And in our mind, we thought, okay, do we have to go outside Kenya? Do we have to go outside Africa to be able to find an organization that is producing this? And we were surprised to find an organization that was producing environmentally friendly notebooks in Kibera.
Right in the country?
Right in the country, Kibera, who actually use recycled materials. They dry their materials using sunshine, so no electricity, renewable energy, sunshine. And actually, in their materials, those notebooks, they actually embed seeds. So when you finish using the notebooks, you can actually plant the notebook. And you can actually... So when you talk about frameworks, and when you think about that, we're very far behind. Could be that, but there are things that we can do even as we move along to develop these frameworks. I think the first thing is to be conscious of the fact that we need to go there as a country. I think even within the private sector, if I take an example, quite a number of banks are already thinking about how do they direct their loans so that their loans prioritize green-friendly projects, the projects which perhaps are more environmentally friendly. So I think even as we develop all these frameworks, there are things that can be done within the private sector, within the non-profit sector, like the example I've given you. So yes, it's a long way to go, but I think if we develop that consciousness, we are aware that we've got an environmental disaster coming in place if we don't do anything, then we'll be able to move to that direction. So yes, we do need those frameworks. Those frameworks will provide incentives for finances to go to environmentally friendly projects within the public sector, for those investments from the public sector to prioritize things that you're talking about. So I think, yes, we do need those ones, but we can move along. As we develop those frameworks, we can move along. Yes.
And back to the Kibera example,
yes.
And it's quite commendable if these things can be scaled up, right?
Correct.
And Kenya has made tremendous achievements when it comes to some of the mitigating factors. We are using over 80% of renewable energy. How do we attract more climate financing models?
Yeah, I think in asking that question, you've got to keep in mind that there are several challenges when it comes to green financing. First of all, because it's a new thing, there are certain technological risks. Okay, even if you're talking about things like solar panels, okay, we're not too sure about how that technology pans out. It's been there all along, but you're not sure how it pans out. So there are certain challenges, even if you're talking about scaling up. You're talking also about the returns on most of these green-friendly projects. The returns actually come over time. It's not something you get in 5 years. Talking about a return that will come in 10 years. So being able to get funding for this sometimes is a challenge. So even as you're talking about being able to scale up, I think we have to be aware. And if I go back to the example that I've just given you, I think because of the risk associated with some of these technologies which actually are green friendly. Maybe it's a question of thinking of it in terms of SMEs, in terms of small scale, like the example I've given in Kibera, so that if it doesn't work out, the loss is not so big. So I think it's about the public sector, the government, the policies to be able to focus on those small SMEs when it comes to then green financing.
And being an accountant and at ACCA, how can finance, accounts, and all those professionals in the finance sector, like yourself, support governments? Because where there is money, there need to be accountability.
Correct.
And you're talking. Remember, we are talking about developing countries, Kenya, where corruption is something that we are still fighting.
I think for me, it's two things. Number one is within the professional accountancy, and I talk about professional accountancy, it's not necessarily ACCA, it's all other professional accountancy bodies. I think number one is developing clear guidelines and standards which define what constitutes a green project or a green investment. Okay. And number two, transparency in reporting. Being able to report and say, this is how we shall measure the impact. Now, the reason for this is because this is what then guides a professional accountant. A professional accountant is guided by certain standards. So if those standards are developed and the professional accountant follow those standards, then at the same time, there's reporting. We're able to report so that you're not just reporting to say that this organization made a profit of so much billions. You're also saying that this organization also had an impact on the environment, on climate change to this extent, so that we are actually saying, yes, in as much as you're getting the financial profits, you're also having an impact on the environment.
And I'm looking at COP28, and we had the Africa Climate Summit a couple of months back, and there are a number of millions that will be spoken about, and some will even go to where they are supposed to. COP28.
Okay.
And Africa, we are going with our demands. We had the Africa Climate Summit.
Okay.
What more should we be seeking? Because every time we are seeking for dollars, and we have to ensure that this money is well accounted for and equitably shared, though many countries are having different challenges. The South is not having the same challenges as the North. As an African continent, what is the one voice that we should be taking to the COP28 as we wrap up?
I can only answer that as an accountant from a professional accountancy point of view. Because I think the other experts who can speak about it from different areas. I think when you talk about millions of funds being devoted to this, and I go back to the same answer that I said before, do we have clear guidelines, clear standards that will define what a green investment, what a green project is? So that, for instance, if organizations, be they in the public sector, be they in the private sector, are being guided by these standards. For example, within the public sector, accounting is guided by something called IPSAS. So how can we ensure that green financing is integrated there? Guidelines for green financing are integrated there. So that even if it's spending within the public sector, then it's within those standards that say, okay, let's prioritize the areas that contribute to the goals that I talked about, whether it's climate change, whether it is promoting renewable energy, etc. And the same thing also when it comes to the private sector. Same thing it comes, for example, to organizations that fund, whether it's getting green funds, green bonds, whether it's getting green loans. How can you make sure all these are actually prioritized to those projects, those businesses that are aligned to environmental goals? And then secondly, reporting. Okay, how do you ensure you've got an integrated reporting that not only captures the financial profit, but also captures the environmental impact?
I know our time is up, but you have a conference that you also have in December. In 20 seconds.
We do have what we call a conference. We normally call it the annual members convention. This is the fourth one we're having, and it will be in South Africa between the 6th and the 8th of December. And the theme of the conference is empowering finance professionals for sustainable development in Africa. And the whole idea is, what does sustainable development, and sustainable development is a bigger subset of green financing. What does green financing mean for professional accountants? Because we have to continuously empower and reskill accountants to be able to do the things that I've talked about.
Thank you so much, George Njue, who is the ACCA head for East Africa, talking about climate financing. ACCA are the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants of Kenya. And away from the interview, moving on, multi-category application tech company Glovo has announced plans to train over 2,000 small and medium enterprises to build their business skills to sharpen their acumen. Head of Impact and Sustainability at Glovo, Sebastian Pellion, says the initiative targets the promotion of entrepreneurship within its ecosystem. The tech company is leveraging on partnership derived in collaboration with Ongoza Institute, an accelerator for early-stage, high-growth young entrepreneurs in Kenya.
We are providing to restaurants, supermarkets, so stores that collaborate with Glovo, a training so they can digitalize and make the most of the application. So all day we're going to have different courses. A course on marketing and sales, a course on pricing.
We're providing Glovo partners with skills training that will enable them to improve their performance on the Glovo app and also improve their performance in their business by making better sales and by reaching more customers with their businesses.
In other news, Old Mutual Health clients will now have access to medical services for minor ailments at accredited pharmacies and clinics under a newly launched Pharmacy First program. Elsewhere, Jubilee Health Insurance has launched a health telematics campaign aimed at promoting wellness and a healthy lifestyle among its customers. Here's Trevor Ngendo with the details.
Old Mutual Health has introduced the Pharmacy First program that will allow clients to seek professional advice and treatment for minor ailments at accredited pharmacy chains, that is Halton's Pharmacy and Good Life Pharmacy, covered under Old Mutual's medical covers.
It's one of its kind, aimed at enabling convenience to our customers and accessibility to simple and basic healthcare needs.
You can access a pharmacy, go and get initial diagnosis for a very, very low fee, which avoids a lot of people having to go and queue at a hospital or queue to see a doctor when there may be just a minor ailment that a pharmacist or a consultant or somebody online, a doctor online, can give you very quick advice at a very low cost. So that's fundamentally, I think, what we're all striving to do, is bring healthcare at a better price.
Meanwhile, Jubilee Health Insurance has unveiled a health telematics campaign aimed at promoting wellness by encouraging individuals to incorporate practical physical activities into their daily routines.
The platform makes it easy and fun to discuss topical issues such as nutrition and engage and compete on various physical activities. Now, Do Anything for the Steps is open for existing Jubilee Health Insurance customers as well as non-customers.
Trevor Ngendo for Lunchtime News.
In sports, the national soccer team Harambee Stars will play Seychelles today in the second FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifier match in Abidjan, Ivory Coast at 10 p.m. Kenyan time. Stars, who lost their first match 2-1 against Gabon, has won only 2 qualifying matches away from home, a history one against Seychelles. The Stars have beaten Seychelles 4 times in their 5 meetings. Seychelles lost their opening match 9-0 to Ivory Coast earlier this month. Harambee Stars head coach Ingin Firat says they have made use of their training sessions in Ivory Coast to rectify their mistakes that saw them lose their opening game against host Gabon last week. Kenya is in Group F together with Ivory Coast, Gambia, Gabon and Burundi. Scotland's successful Euro 2024 qualifying campaign ended with a thrilling draw as Mohamed Elyounous's late equaliser earned Norway a point in a 3-3 draw at the Hampden Stadium. In other matches, Belgium thrashed Azerbaijan 5-0, with Portugal beating Iceland 2-0.
Scotland twice came from behind in the first half, with sloppily conceded goals scored by Aaron Donham and Jørgen Larsen cancelled out by John McGean's penalty and Leo Ostigard's own goal. Stuart Armstrong's strike looked to have earned another win in front of a jubilant Tartan army before former Celtic winner Elyounoussi capitalised on a wonderful floated ball to level late on. The results see Norway qualify for a spot in Germany at the second place, behind Spain, who overcame Georgia.
The ball being, chance for 3-3.
Portugal ended their Euro 2024 qualification campaign with 10 wins out of 10 as Bruno Fernandes set them on the way to victory over Iceland.
Shoved in by Ricardo Horta.
Serbia's Novak Djokovic won a record 7th ATP final title with a dominant victory over Jannik Sinner of Italy that marked another milestone in his memorable season. The 36-year-old Serbian, who lost to the Italian in the group stages, avenged that with a 6-3, 6-3 win in Turin, Italy. He has set records in ranking and titles this year and played some of his best tennis against the youngsters trying to challenge him. Before the singles final, British Joe Salisbury and American partner Rajim Ram retained their doubles titles with a straight-set win over Marcel Granollers and Horacio Ceballos.
Hasn't won too many of those. And an emotional evening with his family too. Hasn't won too many of those. And an emotional evening with his family too. Hasn't won too many of those. And an emotional evening with his family too.
Very well, and it's a wrap here on KBC Channel 1 Lunchtime News this Monday afternoon. Thank you so much for being a valued company. My name is Ben Troy Njue. Anne Wangeshi has been our sign language interpreter for this live newscast. We have more news at 4, 7 and also at 9 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
I have something that I want to tell both of you. It's important.
What do you mean?
What is it?
Tell us.
I have a boyfriend.
Huh?
What is he doing?
I was wrong. I made up my mind. Don't go. Stay.
Too late. I won't leave soon. Not yet. I still have some work to hand over, so I...
Tell me why.
I mean, he didn't respect me at all. It was a big decision, and he didn't think to discuss it with me.
I invited you over because I really wanted to.
We're in a relationship, right? I just don't get why it took you so long to say
He's been
something.
chasing after you for a few days and he's still here. We're not as ignorant as you.
What a surprise!
haiko karibu. Kingororo ni bwana chesi wale wa mitaani kusaga wa kuchunga hii.
Inaonekana kichwa yako imepoteza network. Mimi nakuuliza iko chakula.
Madhe, unajua niko na ka emergency ambao ni ka urgent ndio kamefanya hata nikuje hapa.
Na kofia ni yako umevaa.
Wakimaleta pange tono unilete kifungo. Kwani mimi sina vitu za kufanya na ni marasta na mimi ni off mnapodati.
Leo unajua leo. Sababu wewe ndio wanakujua itakuwa rahisi kuliko mimi. Uko nani? Safi. Nani? Wewe ngoja.
Guess what? It's your good friend and loyal partner, Claudio. He's the one who took it.
Olga mentioned to me that he was also involved in the murder of Carolina. Olga?
I've got nothing to do with those drugs!
Transporting it. So the charges will be against you.
Where are they? They shouldn't get away from us. You two check over there. You come with me. Hurry up!
I've just recalled everything. Now I'm going to do what I should have done long before. I am going to tell the truth. But getting cold feet? No. Certainly not.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for this new edition of Business Africa. This week we put the spotlight on initiatives promoting food self-sufficiency and explore the thorny question of how is Africa tackling the critical minerals revolution that are essential for the energy transition. But first, let's get on with the show with our top stories today. Contributing to food self-sufficiency by rearing young fish, the youth in Côte d'Ivoire are not hesitating to take up the challenge.
I'm the kind of person who likes to do things that are rare. That's why I came to Aboisseau to be trained in fish farming and to develop it in my commune.
Guinean entrepreneurs have imagination. A clever young designer has set her sights on creating designs with waste paper and cardboard.
This black design is made from cardboard. I also use wooden skewers, and thanks to a match creation, these boxes are recycled.
Stop to uncontrolled urbanization. Kampala has taken up the fight to improve the living conditions in the Ugandan capital.
The emphasis in the road designs is putting emphasis on providing walkways, because about 70% of people who come to work in Kampala city, they come through walking.
Sidi Touré, Côte d'Ivoire's Minister of Animal and Fisheries Resources, has confirmed that 6 reforms and 23 development projects are underway. Côte d'Ivoire is rapidly modernizing its animal and fish production systems to reduce its dependence on external food supplies. The professionalization of the players and training are the main levers. Augustin Milan is a role model in this field. Our reporter, Mark Kamara, visited his farm in Aboisseau in the south of the country.